I sat in the hospital's waiting room, unsure whether I should stay or leave. Part of me wanted to flee, leaving the cheating witch wondering where I was. However, I had to confront her one last time. Let me back up a bit. Hello, my name is Mike Gregory. I work as a certified public accountant at Thomas & McMaster. I've been married to Jenny for just under 5 years, but that will change. I joined the Marine Corps shortly after graduating from high school and was assigned to a dispersal clerk position. I was one of the people that made sure our Marines were compensated. It wasn't a glamorous or exciting profession by any measure of the imagination, but I like dealing with statistics. Liars may figure, but figures never lie, and I enjoy that aspect of my profession. After my time in the Corps ended, I went into the reserves and completed my bachelor's degree in accounting. I began my schooling while in the service, so it only took me 3 years to complete my degree and meet the state criteria for a CPA license. Jenny and I met during our senior year of college. She was training to be a paralegal and intended to one day become a lawyer. We met, dated, and married in September, just after graduating from college. I began working for Thomas & McMaster, while she joined Johnson & Associates, a law practice that specialized in family law. Things were fantastic. For the first 4 years, I thought so. Jenny was fine with the fact that I would be gone for reserve drill 1 weekend each month and 2 weeks per year. Fortunately, I was never sent overseas as a reservist, although I was aware that it was possible. Our time together was wonderful. We adored each other and had incredible sex several times per week. We had rented a great apartment and were considering purchasing a house and starting a family. After our 4th wedding anniversary, everything started to fall apart. Jenny began going out on Fridays after work, reportedly with the girls, to let off steam. I didn't think much of it and didn't protest because I would occasionally go golfing with some of the men from work. At first, she was always home by 7:30 or 8 p.m., and we would spend the rest of the night making love. However, as time passed, she began to return home later and later. Once, she didn't arrive home until 7 a.m. the following day, stating that she had spent the night with one of her friends rather than risk driving home inebriated. A call to a friend's house confirmed this, and we headed to the pub to pick up her vehicle. Of course, the friend could have been lying to cover for her, but I had no proof of this. I was furious and informed Jenny that if it happened again, she could contact me and I would pick her up and drive her home. "Yeah, whatever," she responded, waving her hand. That marked the start of the end for us. Jenny grew increasingly dismissive and disrespectful, telling me that I had no right to inquire about her activities outside of work or home. True, I didn't own her, but it seemed to me that if she truly loved me, she would tell me where she was so I wouldn't be concerned. I also noted that her clothes, what there was of it, was usually disheveled when she returned home from these occasions, and she frequently smelled of cologne and something else. She would run into the shower as soon as she arrived home, and of course she was too sleepy to have sex on those nights. As a CPA, I also handled all of our billing accounts. Jenny and I had our checks deposited immediately into our checking accounts. 10% of our earnings went into a savings account for a house and other things. During the first 4 years, everything was typical, but I started seeing certain changes in her spending patterns. For instance, I observed she started buying provocative lingerie at Victoria's Secret & Club, as well as from some of those internet retailers. But I never saw what she had bought. I inquired about the purchases, but she rejected them, instructing me to mind my own business. "I don't mind if you buy wonderful items," I explained, "but I haven't seen any of this. What are you going to do with this?" "It's none of your business," she answered haughtily. "It's none of my business. So what the hell?" I also noticed that her income did not appear to improve on the 4th anniversary of her employment with the company. When I asked her about it, she basically shrugged me off. "No, I did not get a raise," she claimed. No one did. "Things have been a little slow recently." Of course, I knew that was a lie because our firm performed year-end audits for a lot of businesses, including Johnson & Associates, and I was aware that the law firm's revenues had climbed dramatically from the previous year. I made a note to look into this further. When I arrived at work, then there was her work's end-of-year holiday party. I always believed this was Christmas, but her company chose to be politically correct and name it a holiday party instead. Whatever. Jenny first tried to convince me not to go, which raised red flags. I know you don't like being among my co-workers, so why don't you stay at home this year? She inquired. After all, who wants to be around a bunch of stodgy elderly lawyers? Perhaps I just want to spend the evening with you, I suggested. She sighs and shrugs her shoulders. Okay, if you insist, she said. But I want to spend time with my co-workers, and I can't have you hanging all over me all night. What? What exactly do you mean when you say spend time with your colleagues? I questioned. Don't you see them every day at work and in the evenings? I might be asked to dance with some of them. She spoke. Okay, I said, you have space on your dance card for your spouse. She rolled her eyes and let out another groan. I suppose I can fit you in someplace, she said. Don't force it, I said. We went to the party, but I barely saw her the entire time. She introduced me to a handful of her co-workers as her pencil-pushing ball and chain, then dashed off to dance with one man after the next. Her co-workers looked at me with pity, and almost no one spoke to me. I never got to dance with her, and I observed that she had left the party several times, returning sometime later with a guy grasping her rear. If I hadn't known better, I would have thought she had screwed one or more of them. Okay, I'm ready to go, she remarked, slurring her words. She was visibly inebriated, and her clothes and makeup appeared sloppy. I grunted and went out to my car. She followed and tried to kiss me when she got inside, but I pushed her away since her breath was awful. What's the problem? She inquired. I commented on how bad your breath was. What were you drinking? She chuckled. Would you like to know? She inquired. I couldn't help but notice that you couldn't be bothered to dance with your husband, but you spent the entire night with the rest of the group. I replied, yes. So what? She inquired, becoming agitated. I also noted that you were often gone. I spoke. Where did you go? She gave a laugh. It's none of your concern, she said. Nothing else was said for the remainder of the journey home. Naturally, there was no sex for us that evening. Jenny tried to make up for her attitude for the remainder of the holiday, but I could sense things weren't as they used to be. Jenny returned to her witchy ways after the holidays. Our sex life decreased from many times a week to perhaps once per week. If that happened, her time spent with the females grew, and her attitude toward me deteriorated. A few weeks after the holiday party, I called with George Wilson, the accountant who led Johnson & Associates' annual review, and found that everyone in the firm had received a large bonus and a considerable wage rise. Jenny, for example, had received a 30% pay rise and a $10,000 bonus, but none of it was placed into our account. What the heck was she doing with it? I considered asking her, but her attitude put me off. I assumed she would lie about it and use my question as a reason to start a fight. So I asked George if he could look into it and get back to me. He said he would and begged me to allow him a few days. 2 days later, everything fell apart. George stopped by my office and showed me part of what he discovered. According to the information we obtained from their firm, Jenny had her increase automatically paid into an account she established with another bank. I wondered about this, but then understood she was evidently intending to leave me. He also informed me that they had discovered certain inconsistencies in the company's books that could pose some issues. I took note of the information and thanked George for checking into it. That afternoon, my phone buzzed, indicating that I had received an email in my personal account. The subject reads, "What your wife is doing behind your back. I am opening it." I saw a video linked. That video signaled the end of my marriage. I recognized the players as soon as I saw the video. Jenny, one of them, was entirely naked. She was seen having sex with another man. It was awful enough watching my wife screw another man, and it didn't excite me in the least. Their remarks pierced me to the bone and fueled a deadly hatred. "Oh, absolutely, baby Demi," she stated. "Is this better than your dorky husband?" "Much better. He can't even lift it. Maybe I should knock you up," he suggested. She gave a laugh. "Do it. I'll make my entire hubby believe it's his. You're not going to know any better. Are you going to continue screwing everyone else in the company the way you have for the past few months?" "No, not if you get me pregnant. Please fill me up. I want to make my idiot hubby a cock." I paused the video because I couldn't watch it any longer. I read through the email to see who sent it, hoping it was just a cruel prank. I replied, "So who are you, and when did this happen?" A few minutes later, I received a reply. "My name is Tracy Williams, and I am the wife of the hole in the video. I also know who your wife is." This happened yesterday. Would you like to meet? If so, phone me at 000. Of course I wish to meet. I had so many questions. How long had this gone on? Just for starters, this movie clarified a lot of what had been going on between us over the past few months. I took her phone number and called. Hello? Is this Mr. Gregory? Inquired a female voice. Yes, I requested that you call me Mike. Is she Tracy? It is, she stated. I assume you've seen the video. Part of it. I responded. I'd like to meet and figure out what was going on. Okay, she spoke. Meet me at the Starbucks around the corner from your workplace. 20 minutes. I'll be there, I said as the phone ended. I shut down my workstation and left, informing my secretary that I would be gone for a time. It took me 10 minutes to get to Starbucks, so I got some coffee and waited. A few minutes later, an attractive woman entered the store. She looked around and approached when she spotted me. After introducing ourselves, I encouraged her to sit and offered to buy her a cup of coffee. After receiving her order, she reached inside her huge handbag and handed me a manila envelope. Everything you need to know is right here, she stated. I glanced within. In addition to the images, there was a private investigator's report and a flash drive. The flash drive contains video, additional images, and a digital copy of the report. I'm sorry you had to learn of their affair in this manner. How long has this gone on? She said, My heart has been breaking for at least 4 months. Perhaps it will be longer. I know she has worked with several others at her firm. That is also included in the report. Just out of curiosity, why are you telling me all of this? I asked, because I intend to identify your wife in my divorce, which will damage you, she replied. Moreover, I thought you should know. That is, assuming you haven't already worked it out. I'd had suspicions for a long time, but I didn't have any concrete evidence, I informed her. So what do you intend to do? I've previously informed John that if I catch him cheating, I'll divorce him. She said what you'd suspected for a long, but I didn't have any actual proof. I'd caught him before and threatened divorce. But he warned me that if I did, his company would ruin me. You are aware of their notoriety, right? Jenny has mentioned how often they wreck spouses. They compete. I spoke. To be honest, some of Jenny's information regarding their firm astounded me. I was even more shocked that they had gotten away with what they had done thus far. When did they establish their motto? She answered, By any means necessary. So you're going for it this time, I said. She nodded. I am, she said. Now that I had irrefutable evidence of his adultery, it was my turn to refuse. So what exactly do you want from me? I inquired. Nothing, she said. I only wanted to do the right thing. No vengeance at all, I inquired. Nope, she spoke. There is no offense. You appear to be a terrific man, but I'm not going to make any mistakes until this is finished. I gave a nod of understanding. No insult was taken, I said. I fully understand. In fact, she said, I don't think we should see or talk to each other again until it's all over. I got a whole new admiration for this woman. That makes sense, I answered. Thank you for sharing this information. She rose and prepared to depart. You are welcome, Mike. Again, I am sorry, she said. She went into her purse for a business card and handed it to me. This is my attorney's contact information. She is a real shark and she expects to hear from you. I accepted the card and thanked her. I considered what she said and was eager to find out what was on the flash drive. I called the office and requested the afternoon off, then strolled to the parking garage and went home. When I arrived home, I went directly to my own computer and plugged the flash drive. There were other movies on the drive that showed Jenny performing very graphic acts with various men, including John Williams. Some of them included Jenny with John and at least one other man. One sequence in a video made me feel ill to my stomach. Jenny was captured on camera entering the bathroom. She didn't bother locking the door for privacy, as she usually does. As I watched, she pulled off her rings and urinated on them while sitting on the toilet. I heard John chuckling. Damn, you're horrible, which he said. I hope you clean those things before putting them back on. She gave a laugh. Yeah, I will, she responded, placing the filthy rings on the sink. Besides, I only wear them while the loser is present. Why don't you simply divorce him, if you think so little of him? John inquired. She simply shrugged her shoulders. I still like him a little bit. Besides, it's more fun doing this behind his back, she replied. Maybe one day I'll invite you and the men over so we can make him watch us have sex. Perhaps we can set him up. like we have with some of the other individuals we face, and then absolutely destroy him. Do you want to make him your willing cock? John inquired. She gave a smile. She predicted that he would dislike it at first. He'll probably fight it for a while, but once he understands how much harm we can do to him and his reputation, he'll cave in. Would you like to help me? If it means I can have sex with you whenever I want. That's right. She giggled like a little girl. Good, she said. I know he'll never know what happened to him. I couldn't believe she was the woman I'd fallen in love with. The witch had just declared war, unaware that she had done so. And I promised her an unbelievable conflict. I read the PI. According to the article, Jenny and her lovers met at least once a week at the Marriott Hotel downtown, and I always spent the night on at least one weekend per month. According to the report from last month, John spent the entire weekend with Jenny at my place reading over the itinerary. I understood those were the weekends when I was on reserve drill. I checked my watch and realized I still had some time until she got home. So I took the card Tracy had given me and called Sally Hawkins' law offices, the receptionist said. I introduced myself and scheduled an appointment to visit Sally the following morning. After that, I logged into our bank account and performed the traditional pre-divorce dance. I paid off and closed our shared credit cards before opening a separate account in my name exclusively. I then moved half of our money to the account. Then I went to my gun safe and brought out my 0.45mm M1911A1 pistol, which was still in its holster. I grabbed a fully filled magazine, placed it into the pistol grip, and fastened it to my belt. We live in a state that requires a permit to carry a firearm, so I made sure my permit was up to date. I also possessed a concealed carry permit, which I rarely used. After hearing Jenny and her whole lover, I didn't want to take any chances. I entered what used to be our bedroom and grabbed a suitcase and an overnight bag. I threw some of her clothes in the luggage and packed her toiletries in the overnight bag. I didn't care how I packed her clothing. I put the packed luggage close to the door. Jenny arrived home while I was seated at my computer. I turned on the camera on my phone, which I always carried in my shirt pocket. The phone was tall enough for the camera lens to peep out of my shirt pocket. She was surprised that I had arrived home before her. "Mike, what are you doing at home this early?" she inquired, going inside the bedroom that doubled as my workplace. "I need to take care of some things," I replied casually. Then she noticed the revolver on my hip. "Why are you dressed like that?" she inquired. I mentioned self-protection. "By the way, I have something to show you." "Oh," she inquired. "What?" "Come on in. I said you'd find this very intriguing." She went in and stood alongside me, staring at the computer. I loaded one of the video files and played it for her. Her eyes widened as she saw herself being pounded by two men. "So," she said, "I guess you caught me." "I suppose so," I said. Her reaction astonished me. I was hoping she would have apologized or shed a tear, but she did not. She seemed more haughty and condescending than usual. "I suppose now that you know, there's no need for me to sneak about," she explained. "So I'll be stopping by John's residence from time to time. And yes, he will be spending the night in my bed. Yes, you will watch. And if you're a good boy, I might give you sloppy seconds. That's too bad." "Really? I had thought we could keep this from you for a little longer, but there's no reason to wait. You are dumb and deluded." Which I mentioned. I had never spoken to her in this way before, so she was naturally taken aback. "In fact, you'll take your trash and leave right now." "What will you file for? Divorce?" she inquired. "Because doing so would be the biggest mistake you've ever made." "Really?" I asked. "Why are you and your sex buddies going to make shit up about me in the same way you have done to others?" "You have no idea what we are capable of," she continued. "By the time we're done with you, you could be incarcerated as a wife-beater, and your reserve career will be over. We might even plan unlawful spicy videos for your machine. Make it appear as if you had a hand in making it. You would be shocked at what we can accomplish with video editing software. That was it. Have a go, asshole." "So that's your plan?" I inquired. "Force me to be your cock by making up lies. You are aware that is a falsehood." "But why not?" she inquired. "This is something we do all the time." "I am going to leave for the time being. However, you give it some serious thought. I'll give you 48 hours to reconsider. Either follow the program or be publicly ruined." "Wait," I said, reaching out for her hand. "What?" she inquired. I ripped her rings off and took her keys out of her pocketbook. "What are you doing right now?" she asked as I removed the home key. I returned her purse to her. I said, "Get the hell out. I've already packed some of your shit. Now go." She glanced at the bags near the door, then back at me. "Mike, don't do this," she urged. "Out." I made an order. She scooped up the luggage and departed. I paused the video on my phone and examined it to ensure I had captured the entire confrontation. I did good. I'd make certain Sally saw this tomorrow. I emailed the film to myself so that I could see it on my computer. It was then passed on to her parents, sister, and my parents. I wanted everyone to see what Ginny had become, and I didn't want her to paint me as the villain in all of this. Following a relatively sleepless night, I spent the remainder of the night drinking beer and watching TV. I called into work and requested a couple of vacation days. I explained what was going on to my boss, and he fully understood. "Just take care of everything and get back as soon as you can," he advised. "Thanks, boss," I said, hanging up the phone after having a shower. I got ready and headed out to see Sally, making sure I had everything I needed. Sally astonished me with her no-nonsense demeanor. She looked at everything I had and shook her head. "Mike, this is fantastic," she exclaimed. For years, I'd heard tales about Johnson and Associates, but there was never any evidence to back them up. We're looking at significant criminal charges, if what she says is true. "So what can we do with this?" I inquired. "So I'll file for divorce on the grounds of infidelity, with a 70-30 split and no maintenance. We'll give her the normal 30 days to respond to our demand for a complete financial report. In the interim, I'll look into obtaining a subpoena for her banking data. If she tries to hide the account, we may be able to prosecute her with perjury based on what she said in the video. I'll also obtain a restraining order against her that protects you, your house, and your place of business," she said. She said she will contact the state bar and the local district attorney about the rest. To me, this looks like extortion. We'll see what comes of it. Meanwhile, keep your nose clean, don't confront her, don't speak with her or any of her co-workers. Avoid her. Have you got it? I nodded. Have you got it? I spoke. Good. I'll start the paperwork and have her served at work within the next day or two. If necessary, call me on my personal mobile phone, but please do not abuse this privilege. She passed me a card. "Thank you, Sally," I murmured, shaking her hand. That day, I received 3 calls. My mother was the first to tell me. "Mike, I'm very sorry about everything. Are you all right?" she inquired when I would respond. "I will be, Mother. Thanks. I saw an attorney today and she is handling the situation. So please let us know if there is anything you require. We love you, Mike. I also adore you, Mama. I spoke." Jenny's parents called next, and they seemed to struggle with basic English. "Mike, what the heck is this?" the father inquired. "So what did you do?" "What did I do?" I asked, perplexed. "You mean other from love, Jenny, with all of my heart?" "Nothing. Did you listen to what she said?" "Yes, I heard it, but I can't imagine she would do such a thing without being provoked." "Can't you just work this out?" "No, I can't, Dad. I've already seen an attorney and filed for divorce." "I apologize, son," he finally said. "This simply doesn't make logic to me." I had to concur. Jenny's actions made no actual logic. "Please do not damage my small girl." "I won't," I said, hanging up the phone. Her sister also called, and she was furious. "What the hell is going on here, Mike? So what did you do?" "I didn't do anything. Not me, but your sister has gone off the deep end. I can't believe it. My sister would never do something like that. Believe whatever you want." "I don't really care. I'm just explaining why I'm divorcing her." "You can discuss it with her." I terminated the call. Pissed. I booted up my computer and checked my email. There was a mail in my inbox with the subject, "Read. I understand what you've done." I looked at the sender and noticed it was Jenny's firm. The email resembled one of those bogus letters that end up in the spam folder. "I know what you've been up to, and I have footage of you masturbating in front of photographs and videos of young females." The email stated that you had 24 hours to stop any divorce proceedings and that the files we have will be removed after you send us a cashier's check for $100,000. If you do not do this, we will forward the files to the authorities. Your Marine Corps superiors, as well as your family, will accompany you to work. If you agree, please reply with the word "agree," and we will postpone any further action. The email didn't have a signature. I looked at the header, but there was nothing that gave me any hints. However, that wasn't my area of expertise. I called my company's IT security man, Bill Frederick, and chatted with him. Bill, I need to ask you a favor. I agreed. Mike, what is up? Well, it's fairly private. Could you just keep this quiet for me? Absolutely. He spoke. Okay, I just received an email that appears to be from my wife's law firm, but I am unable to authenticate it. Could you please have a look at this and tell me what you think? Sure, send it to me and I'll have a look. I'll know in just a few minutes. Thank you, I replied. The call terminated. I sent the email to Bill and waited for what felt like an eternity. He called back approximately 30 minutes later. What did you discover? It was obviously from the Johnson & Associates network. They didn't even try masking it or routing it through any proxies. Talk about arrogant. You can confirm that, I inquired. Absolutely. I can even tell you who authored it. Would you testify to this in court? Sure. If it comes to that, he stated. Thanks. I really owe you a lot. I'll notify my attorney. She may want to speak to you. No problem, he said. Give her my phone number. We ended the conversation, and I immediately called Sally. She responded on the second ring. She mentioned Sally Hawkins. Hello, Sally. This is Mike Gregory. I just received what appears to be a blackmail email. I had our IT security guy look at it, and he said it came from the Johnson & Associates network. Really? She inquired. Okay, I'm currently working on your petition and receiving the restraining order. Please send that email to me, along with your IT guy's contact information. We will handle this. Don't say or do anything. Okay, appreciate it. I terminated the call. I sent Sally what she asked for, and then popped open a beer. What in the hell was going to happen next, I was wondering. I discovered it later that evening. I received a call from Tracy around 9:30. Mike, have you been watching the news? She inquired. No. Why? She said, turn on Channel 7 now. Channel 7 was a local news channel that I didn't watch very often. I changed the channel to repeat. According to eyewitnesses, 4 people were killed and 4 others were seriously injured this evening when a gunman entered the Lamplighter Bar and Grill and opened fire on a crowd with what police say was an AR-15 style weapon equipped with a bump stock, the news announcer stated. According to eyewitnesses on the scene, the gunman was fatally shot by another bar patron wielding a pistol. It's unclear what triggered the shooting. The announcer added that the scene had changed and that a reporter was speaking with a man identified as a witness. The man described it as wild. This guy walked into the bar, went to a table where these people were gathered, and began yelling something about them ruining his life with theirs. He screamed something like, "You are going to die! You destroyed me with your effing lies!" Then he pulled out his rifle and began shooting. He fired several rounds before another man shot him in the back with a pistol. Everyone was running, trying to get out. The television returned to the newscast. Announcer: the victims' names are being withheld pending notification of next of kin, but police say they all appear to work for the Johnson & Associates law firm. The gunman has been identified as Roger Spencer, a man who was reportedly accused of molestation during a bitter divorce. It is unclear where he obtained the weapon used in the attack, but activists have already called for additional gun control measures. Next, on Eyewitness News, a man reunites with his dog. Damn. I informed Tracy that there had been a knock on the door. I need to leave now. Tracy, someone has knocked on the door. She said, same here. Please contact me if you find anything out. Yes, I will, I said, hanging up the phone. I put my phone away and opened the door to discover 2 police officers. Mr. Gregory, one of the officers, inquired. Yes, I said. Do you know what Jenny Gregory? He questioned me. I do. She is my wife. At least for now, I said. I'm sorry to inform you, sir, that your wife was seriously injured in a mass shooting and has been transported to Mercy Hospital. The officer said. Just how bad is she? I inquired. He said, I'm not sure, sir. I recommend that you talk to the doctor when you return. I'm sorry, sir. They tipped their hats before leaving. Damn, I needed the slimy 304 out of my life, but I didn't want her to die. I returned Tracy's call. When she answered on the second ring, I could hear her crying. Tracy, my name is Mike. I asked what happened. They just told me, Jeff, that my husband had been shot and killed at the Lamplighter. She spoke. Tracy, I am sorry to hear that. I said it again. I was hoping the creep would turn out to be Bubba's witch, which made me feel even worse for Tracy. Jenny had also been shot. I'm going to the hospital to find out what I can. Is there anything that I can do for you? We're sniffling. No, but thanks for asking, she replied. Please stay in touch and let me know what's going on. Yes, I will, I informed her. We ended the phone call and I went to the hospital. The place was packed with cops and reporters, and medical personnel were frantically trying to care for patients. Finally, I found someone who could provide an answer. Jenny was still having surgery, I was told, but I could sit in the waiting room and someone would come get me. Naturally, I had to fill out several sheets of Jenny's information because she was still covered by my work insurance. She had her own insurance, so I assumed her treatment was mostly covered. So here I am at the start of my story, unsure whether I should just say screw it and leave or not. I called Sally and informed her of what had occurred. She stated that she would wait to serve Jenny until she was fully recovered from surgery. I called Jenny's parents and sister to inform them of what had occurred. Naturally, they tried to blame me, but I told them that if I had done it, I'd most likely be dead rather than in hospital. They sat across from me in the waiting room, staring at me like I was a pile of dog poop on the ground. I had already eaten a piece of chicken and mashed potatoes and drank several cups of bitter coffee before sitting here for several hours watching the news. I dozed off several times while watching television. It was 5 a.m. When a tired doctor approached me in the waiting room, Mr. Gregory, he inquired. I stared at him with tired, bloodshot eyes. Yes, I inquired, rubbing my eyes to remain awake. Jenny's parents and sister approached us. Your wife is currently in critical condition but appears to be stable. He said we'd find out more within the next 24 hours. We removed 3 bullets from her chest and another grazed her face and injured her right eye. 1 lung was punctured and another bullet entered her spinal column, but we are confident that she will survive. The next day or 2 are critical. Is she still awake? Her father inquired. The doctor shook his head. No, he responded. She is still under anesthesia. Just so you know, she may never be able to walk again or recover full sight in her right eye without additional surgery. I'm sorry, he said before walking away. Her father gave me a look. So, do you still intend to divorce her? He inquired. I paused for a moment before answering. A part of me considered forgiving her, but what she had done was still too painful. Yes, I replied. They all looked at me stunned. But I'll wait until she's stable. How could you possibly be that cruel? Her mother inquired. How can she be so cruel? I asked where she was going to stay. What is she going to do? Jenny's mother inquired. If my guess is correct, this will be a minor issue. I spoke. What exactly do you mean? Her father inquired. I did not want to speak out of turn or reveal too much information. We shall see. I said I was going home, but I'd be back. I left them standing there and returned home, where I showered and fell asleep. The next day, news of the shooting had spread throughout the country. Hundreds of men came forward to claim that the law firm had targeted them for extortion for actions they had never committed. The stories were strikingly similar. Each man had been threatened with revealing a heinous act they had never committed unless they paid large sums of money. As a result, many people had been permanently harmed. State authorities intervened, arresting several of the firm's lawyers, and the company was forced to cease operations. A massive class action lawsuit was filed against the firm and its partners, seeking millions of dollars in damages in addition to the criminal court's order. 3 days after the shooting, I received word from the hospital that Jenny was awake and calling for me. When I called Sally to inform her, she said a couple of men would meet me there. One of them, she stated, was the process server. I called Jenny's parents and was told that one of them had been sitting with her in shifts since her surgery. In the hallway outside Jenny's room, I met the process server and a man who introduced himself as Detective Fulcher. We entered Jenny's room where she sat in bed. Her mother sat in a chair against the wall. Jenny looked at each of us, her face filled with questions. Jenny Gregory, the process server, inquired. She nodded. He confirmed her identity and gave her a manila packet. He said, "You've been served," before leaving the room. Detective Fulcher stood in front of her bed. He shook his head while looking down at her. "You are aware that extortion and conspiracy to conduct extortion are felonies in this state, right?" he inquired. Jenny looked down and gave a nod. "Yes," she murmured softly, her voice crackling. "You are also aware that each act of extortion in this state carries a maximum sentence of 15 years in jail and a $10,000 fine." "Right," he inquired again. Jenny nodded. He handed her a printed copy of the email I had received. "Does this appear familiar?" he inquired. She seemed defeated. "It certainly should. It was created and dispatched from your computer using your Logon name, along with around 75 others. We found them all in your mailed stuff folder." I'm no scientist, but 76 multiplied by 15 years equals roughly 1140 years, and you're looking at a fine of over $760,000. Simply put, you're screwed. You know, I am going to have to arrest you. The DA is requesting a life sentence with all counts against you, but if you cooperate with us, maybe I can persuade him to make you a deal. What do you say? Jenny bowed her head again. "Okay," she said gently. "Okay," he said. "I'll leave you alone with your husband and family for a few minutes, but I'll return." Detective Fulcher stared at me briefly before placing his hand on my shoulder and walking out of the room. I glanced down on my soon-to-be ex-wife. Tears began to trickle down her cheek. "How could you have done this to me?" I inquired. "I've only ever loved and respected you. I assumed you were also in love with me. What in the hell happened?" "I'm sorry," she murmured through tears. Her mother took the email and read it, her eyes wide with disbelief. "My God," she murmured, looking at her daughter. "Did you really write this to your husband?" Jenny started crying even harder. "How could you do this?" I looked at her mom. "How do you believe Johnson and Associates grew so successful?" I posed a rhetorical question. "They did this to a group of men searching for a quick payday. That's why the guy went and shot them all, and I have her on film stating they did this all the time. It's no surprise you'd want to divorce her," she said, staring at me. "I absolutely do not blame you. On top of her adultery, I stated unequivocally that I would never want her back. Ever." I turned back to face Jenny. "You never replied to my question." She stared at me defeated. I became caught up in the enthusiasm and strength. "I suppose," she said. "What about the letters?" "Well, I was simply doing what the lawyers requested. I despised doing it, and I wasn't the only one. All of the paralegals did it as well. Please trust me." I shook my head. I was merely obeying directions. "Sorry, but that old excuse doesn't cut it anymore. I made the snarky remarks, the disdain, the cheating. No, you absolutely enjoyed it. You got off on bringing me down. I could see the joy on your face when you told me. You do it constantly. I could see how much you enjoyed pushing me down while being drilled by that asshole. Oh, and he died. Nah, you just messed up, and it nearly cost you your life. It undoubtedly ended your marriage. I hope it was worthwhile for you." "Could you please forgive me?" she inquired. I shook my head. "Nope," I said never. "I am just glad we didn't have any children. By the way, when you fill out your financial statement, don't forget to add your secret account. You remember the one you put up to keep money from me. I wouldn't want to see you add perjury to your list of crimes." She stared at me, her eyes wide. "Do you know about it?" she inquired. I nodded. "Of course," I answered. "Who do you believe conducted the year's bookkeeping and auditing for your firm? You think you have a problem? That's nothing compared to what we've discovered over the last year. Believe me, the feds are going to have a great day with your senior partners." I took one last look at Jenny. "Goodbye, Jenny," I said. "I adore you." As I walked out, Detective Fulcher arrived with 2 uniformed officers. Jenny was chained to the bed as her mother cried. Johnson and Associates faced many charges from both state and federal entities. Furthermore, the class action complaint for defamation and other civil torts now included far over 700 individuals, some of whom had been detained and designated sex offenders following convictions originating from the firm's fraudulent claims. The court ultimately ordered the firm and its senior partners to pay more than $2.5 billion in fines, fees, and reparations. With the lion's share going to the attorneys and the taxmen, the firm's attorneys were all disqualified from practicing. Their legal licenses were suspended for life. For years, there was heated disagreement over the firm's handling of divorces. Given the circumstances of the affair, some have suggested that they all be evaluated. Others argued that only cases involving the men mentioned in the class action should be considered. In the end, nothing was examined or altered. The partners who survived the shooting received life sentences. Before his trial ended, Max Johnson, the firm's senior partner, shot himself in the home. Jenny begged off. After reviewing the state's evidence, the judge sentenced her to 20 years in jail and stated that she would be eligible for parole in 10 years. When she was finally discharged, she was scarred, blind in her right eye, and unable to walk as a result of the gunshot. When her finances ran out, she moved in with her parents and applied for help. I last heard she was writing a blog about the perils of infidelity, of all things. Jenny's betrayal had a long-lasting impact on me. I remained a hermit, only going on the rare date. I had tremendous trust difficulties with women. 3 years after the divorce, I met Carol, a former military who now works as a postal clerk. She was about 2 years younger than me and had recently buried her previous spouse, who died of a severe heart attack. We had dated several times before. I felt comfortable discussing my prior marriage with her. Carol listened carefully as I described what happened. She nodded as I finished. "That explains a lot," she added. "I understand it was difficult for you to tell me everything, but I'm glad you did. Not every woman is like Jenny. I, like you, believe in the Marine Corps' motto, Semper Fidelis. And if you give me a chance, I'll prove myself." She did, many times, in numerous ways, and she is still doing it after all these years. I eventually retired from the reserves as a master sergeant and began receiving my retirement. When I turned 55 years old, Carol and I planned to spend our retirement traveling around the country in a new RV we purchased with some of the money I earned from the class action against the firm. And Carol says she will love me to death. I believe her and can live with that.